ಸಂಸಾರದವ ನಲಲಿದಲೋಕ ತ್ರನಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವ
ಸಂಸಾರದವ ನಲನಿದಲೋಕ ತ್ರನಾಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವ
ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣರ್ನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರ ವಿಂದ
ಪ್ರಾಪತ್ಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣರ್ನವಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಮಹಾಪ್ರಭು ಕೀರ್ತನ ನೃತ್ಯ ಗೀತ ವಾದಿದ್ರಾಮಾಧ್ಯಾನ್ಮನಸೋರ ಸೇನಾ
ಮಹಾಪ್ರಭು ಕೀರ್ತನ ನೃತ್ಯ ಗೀತ ವಾದಿದ್ರಾಮಾಧ್ಯಾನ್ಮನಸೋರ
ರೋಮಾಂಚಕಂಪಶ್ರುತರಂಗಬಾಜೋ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ರೋಮಾಂಚಕಾಂಪ ಸುತರಂಗಬಾಜೋ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಶ್ರೀ ವಿಗ್ರಹಾರಾಧನ ನಿತ್ಯಾನನ ಶೃಂಗಾರತನ ಮಂದಿರ ಮರ್ಜನಾದೋ
ಶ್ರೀ ವಿಗ್ರಹಾರಾಧನ ನಿತ್ಯಾನನ ಶೃಂಗಾರತಾನಮಾನ್ಯಮರ್ಜನಾದ
ಯುಕ್ತಸ್ಯ ಭಕ್ತಾಂ ಶನಿಯುಂಜತೋಪಿ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಯುಕ್ತಸ್ಯ ಭಕ್ತಾಂ ಶನಿಯುಂಜತೋಪಿ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಚತುರ್ವಿಧಾ ಶ್ರೀ ಭಗವತ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದೋ ಸ್ವಾದಾನ ತೃಪ್ತಾನ್ ಹರಿಭಕ್ತ ಶಂಗ
ಚತುರ್ವಿಧಾ ಶ್ರೀ ಭಗವತ್ಪ್ರಸಾದ ಸ್ವಾದನ ತೃಪ್ತಾನ್ ಹರಿಭಕ್ತಸಂಗ
ಕೃತ್ವೈವ ತೃಪ್ತಿಂ ಭಜತ ಸದೈವ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಕೃತ್ವೈವ ತೃಪ್ತಿಂ ಭಜತ ಸದೈವ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ಶ್ರೀರಾಧಿಕಾ ಮಾಧವಯೋರಪಾರ ಮಾಧುರ್ಯ ಲೀಲಾ ಗುಣರೂಪ ನಾಮ್ನಾ ಪ್ರತಿಕ್ಷಣ ಸ್ವಾದನ ಲೋಲುಪಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ
ನಿಕುಂಜಯುನೋ ರತಿ ಕೇಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾಯ್ ಯಯಾಲಿ ಬೇರಿಯುಕ್ತಿರಪೇಕ್ಷಣೀಯ ತತ್ರಾತಿ ದಾಕ್ಷಾದತಿ ವಲ್ಲಭಸ್ಯ ವಂದೇ ಗುರು ಶ್ರೀ ಚರಣರವಿಂದ ಸಾಕ್ಷಾದರಿತ್ಯ यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत् प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरु श्री चरणरविन्दम् ध्यायन्तु वांस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरु श्री चरणरविन्दम् नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य दिशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hariharaaya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Raghunatha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe Jaya Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Pratikacharya Sri Srimad Divine Grace Apartana Vrinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya PPT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Pratikacharya Sri Srimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Harisasa Thakur Ki Jai. Premise Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Tata Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Kamada Ekadashi Tithi Ki Jai. Ekadashi Vrata Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaura Pramananda all glory to the Sambo devotees, all glory to Sambo devotees, all glory to Sambo devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
नरसिंहाय प्रहलाद दायिने हिरण्याकाशिपूर्वक्षः शीलतङ्कानखालये हितो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बहे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहम् आदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरेणाखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवदिता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जयो जगदीश हरे नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय भक्त प्रहलाद
नृसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशव सचा विष्णु भक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशव सचा विष्णु भक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशव सचा विष्णु भक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषे। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषे। जे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वांछ पूर्ण हो। जे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वांछ पूर्ण हो। कृपा कोरे करो तारे वृंदावन वासी। मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वार। नायाने हेरे बो सदा युगल रूपराशे। निवेदन धरो सखीरानुगत करो। सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासे। दीन कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा हो। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न बासे। श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न बासे। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी। जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी। निताय गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, निताय गौर हरि बोल। जय जय प्रभुपाद, 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव, 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 जय जय गुरुदेव, 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः। वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवती नमो नमः। वृंदाये तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च, विष्णु भक्ति प्रति देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः। प्रियाय केशवस्य च। मते वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Oh, Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is in the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you his wish is filled. Please have mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is also from your residence, and treasure goes to Shri Vrindavan town. Thus within my vision I shall always behold the beautiful blossom Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Karma and of Vraja. Please give me the privilege of devotional very tall and lotus of the Krishna face. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. There are 10 fences in the master chant holy name that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for the propagation of the name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods, Lord Shiva, Brahma, equal independent name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the vision visits of authorship assuming the vision version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength to chant the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one auspicious ritual activity, often the Vedas are free to activity, karma, and 9. To interpret faith and express about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us have our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as thy trees who can fulfill everyone. They are full compassion, fallen, conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shastakam ki jai. Jeto darpana marjanam pavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shriya Gairava Chantrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Pudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadishi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Disham Iha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sashnuna Amanina Manatena Kirtanya Sadaharihi Na Thanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitamba Jagadisha Kamaye Majamani Jamanishwa Tuki Twai Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Pavam Puto Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitha Duri Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Karadashru Daraya Vatanam Katkada Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishati Yugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashri Shava Padaratam Pinnastumam Adarshanam Marmhatam Karotuva Yatha Tatha Va Vidhathatu Lampato Matprana Nathastu Sa Eva Na Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Shastakam ki jai. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendent knowledge. It increases the ocean transcendent bliss, and enables us to fully take the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grants all benediction human beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, our kindness enables us easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. Being such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Sahamarjananda, I'm your eternal servitor. Yet somehow I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the lotus feet. Oh my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. While my voice choke up, on all the hairs of my body stand and end a recitation of your name. Oh Govinda, patience, I'm consider a moment to be like great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all weakened in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord. I shall remain so if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken heart by not being present before me. He is complete, free to and everything. For it's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shri Shastra Kam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranam Mangalacharanam Prayers Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitam Scha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pisthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pisthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namini Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Chala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuka Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarini Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harini Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sasha Vairagya Mutaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Bhajate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namini
Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupa Nuga Varayate Gaura Virva Vinestvam Nirtisa Sajanapriya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahadanyaya Krishna Premadayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachase Namaha Vanchakatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhaktasaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostite Jayadam Trato Bangor Mamamanda Matekati Matsarva Swapadam Gocho Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindarana Kalpadimadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prastali Vihi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasa Saram Divam Sivata Tatastita Karsham Venus Nir Gopir Gopinata Shri Eshtana Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasat Masuka Praviksha Lakshabriteshu Surabhira Pibalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Varharvatam Samasitam Pujasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasatmanamadi Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayake Vilasam Shyamam Tripangaladitam Yata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Angani yasya sakalendriya vriddhimanti pasyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti Ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam Adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha Vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atmabhakto Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami Pantata koti shatavassara sapraganyo Vayoratapi manaso munipundamalam Sopyasta yat prapadasinya vichintya tattve Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Ekopya sora chaitum jagadanda kotim Yasyaktirasti jagadanda chaya yadanta Andantarasta padmanu chayantarastam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yad bhava bhavitadru malajastataiva samprapya rupa mahimasana yana bhusa Suktaya eva nikama patitaistuvanti Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yad bhava chinmaya rasa patibhavithavi Shthavira eva nijaruptaya kalavi Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Premanjana chuta bhakti vilochanena Santak sadeva hidesu vilokayanti Yam shama sundaram achintya guna swarupam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Ramadi murti sukalani yamitishtana Anavatarama karo bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramapumam
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feather, and with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue cows, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shamsundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universe as both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Sham Sundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable and innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna, and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nishinga, Varaha, etc., as his subjective portion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Brahma Samhita ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Charini Nirvisesa Sunavadi Paskati Sutana. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm going to say a few words about the Ramayana. I've written an article about this some time ago, and it's the Ramayana, the epic that has sustained Indian culture for over 1,000,000 years. And I say Lord Ramachandra's exile from Ayodhya for 14 years began an odyssey that resulted in dispensing unlimited mercy to the most unfortunate outcasts from Vedic society. We should pay close attention to the following because it focuses on the real and profound spirit of the Vedic culture that is an all-exclusive ocean of grace. Lord Rama was faultless, yet his stepmother, Kaikeyi, convinced his father, King Dasarath, to banish him from the kingdom for 14 years so that her birth son, Bharat, could ascend the throne of Ayodhya. Lord Rama respected his father and his stepmother. He accepted the banishment and graciously left with Sita Devi and Lakshman. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 4.7-8, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion. I myself appear millennium after millennium. The Lord can easily kill the miscreants without appearing in this world. His real reason for appearing is to deliver the devotees from the cycle of birth and death. Lord Rama manifested his wonderful mercy when he traveled throughout India's forests during his exile. But the most surprising aspect of his generous dispensing of grace was that he gave his blessings to the most unexpected souls, subhumans living in the jungle, wild beasts and rakshasas, man-eating demons, vultures, races of monkeys and bears, and mixed races of humans and animals, social outcasts of the Vedic society, etc. We normally don't expect such people or creatures to be elevated devotees of Lord Rama. Wait, can you turn the lights on, Anajai? Don't forget to do that. He proved that they were indeed serious devotees by dint of their willingness to serve him. He readily and freely gave his benedictions to such living entities, demonstrating that the material body is only a temporary covering of the eternal soul, which has natural and innate love for God. Lord Rama showed that every living being has an eternal soul and a personal relationship with God. Once the coverings of ignorance are removed from the soul, love of God manifests. God is present in our heart as the Supersoul or Paramatma, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known, Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita 15:15. It is possible to peel away the coverings of ignorance summarized as the two principal aspects of the false ego. One, the desire to identify with and dominate material nature. Two, the desire to enjoy material nature and in the process become madly attached to it. Once the false ego is wiped clean, our natural love for God manifests as bright as the sun. Lord Ramachandra demonstrated this amazing phenomenon when he traveled throughout India and met many living entities, considered outcasts of the Vedic culture, whose natural love manifested by seeing him and engaging in his service. I will describe Lord Rama's mercy shown to Guha, Sabari, Jatayu, Hanuman, and Vibhishan. Guhaka was a chief of a tribal people, Nishadas, who lived by hunting and gathering in the forests outside of Ayodhya. They were honest, hard-working people, largely neglected by the sophisticated city dwellers. Guhaka was not formally educated, but he was a wise man who had great respect for Lord Rama. He approached the noble and virtuous character of the Lord. He appreciated the noble and virtuous character of the Lord. He was aware of the banishment of the Lord and was anxious to serve him if he needed help. Guhaka had a powerful army. When Rama arrived at Shringavirapura, Guhaka's forest town, with Lakshman, Sita, and Sumanta, who drove them in Dasarath's horse-drawn chariot, Guhaka greeted them and offered his kingdom and himself to Lord Rama. Lord Rama embraced the jungle king affectionately for his humble offerings of milk and delicious fruits and shelter. Rama politely refused to partake of Guhaka's gifts except for hay for his father's horses. Rama appreciated Guhaka's affection and help. By embracing Guhaka, Rama manifested the principle of equal vision as given in the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, Samadarshi. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, outcast. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. The Lord accepts the service of his devotees without consideration of caste distinctions and reciprocates with his devotees on the basis of their love for him. He says, "The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. The devotee does not know anything beyond me, and I also cannot forget the devotee. There is a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees in full knowledge are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they are very much dear to me." Srimad Bhagavatam 9:4-68. Guhaka's praiseworthy desire to serve Rama and his devotees was the mark of his love for the Lord. Next, Rama asked Lakshman to bring drinking water, which he drank. Then he and Sita laid down on the ground on straw to sleep. While they slept, Lakshman and Guhaka kept watch until dawn. Guhaka listened to Lakshman lament about the distressful situation of Dasarath in Ayodhya. Valmiki Muni describes how Guhaka was affected by Lakshman's descriptions. He was oppressed with agony. He shed tears like an elephant tormented with fear. The next morning, Rama requested a good boat to cross the Ganges and entered a deep forest. Guhaka quickly made available a sturdy boat. Rama remarked, "Guhaka, I have gained my object through your help." Before boarding the boat, Rama made a final request of Guhaka. "I shall repair to the forest like an ascetic with Sita and Lakshmana. Please bring me the gum of a banyan tree for producing matted hair of an ascetic." Guhaka immediately had banyan gum brought, and the two brothers matted their hair like rishis. They crossed the Ganges and entered the Dandaka forest to begin their 14 years of exile. Sometime later, Bharata led a vast army along with the residents of Ayodhya to meet with Rama and beg him to come back and forget about the exile. Guhaka at first thought Bharata had come to kill Rama, but when he met Bharata, he realized that Rama's brother was full of respect and love for the Lord. Guhaka offered his hospitality to Bharata and the multitude of the royalty, people and soldiers that accompanied him. Guhaka consoled Bharata and described in detail about the behavior of Rama and Lakshmana, their humility and determination to live 14 years as ascetics in the wild jungle. He related how Rama refused all the delicious fruits he offered by saying, "My friend, it is our duty to give and not to take." Hearing Guhaka's narration, Bharata fainted due to his grief. When he recovered, he tearfully asked Guhaka where Rama spent the night. The forest king, Guhaka, showed him the tree under which Rama and Sita slept on straw strewn on the ground. He told him that Rama simply drank some Ganges water with Sita and laid down to sleep. Lakshmana drank the rest of the remaining water and spent the night talking with Guhaka about Rama and Dasratha. The profound love that Bharata expressed for Rama enhanced Guhaka's own deep feelings of love for the Lord. Krishna says, "The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me." Bhagavad Gita 10.9. The only way for Bharata to assuage or diminish the intense feeling of separation and anxious expectation of meeting Rama was to talk about him with Guhaka. These are the symptoms of pure devotees. Tulsidas says, even a Chandala, dog-eater or outcast, Shavara, a Bil or tribal people of central India, Kasa, Mongolians and Chinese, Yavana, Turks, or Kirata, tribals of eastern India, ignorant or base though they may be, by uttering the name of Rama, becomes wholly pure and renowned through all the spheres. Ramcharitmanas, Ayodhya Kanda 9:14. As he did for Rama, Guhaka arranged for the supplies to feed all the inhabitants of Ayodhya following Bharata. He also commissioned hundreds of boats to transport everyone across the Ganges. Bharata and his huge procession followed the same route as Rama into the jungle. The tribal women and other villagers who previously witnessed Rama, Sita, and Lakshman, and later Bharata and Shatrughna passing through the jungle, said, "The queen mother, Kaikeyi, is not to blame at all. All this has been accomplished by fate, which so kindly blessed us with the darshan of all these saintly persons. Of what account are we, wretched females, excluded both from secular and Vedic rites, and of base birth and unworthy conduct? We dwell in poor villages in the wilds and are the worst of our class. We are now the most fortunate to have such a vision, which is sufficient reward for the honest religious merit." Ramcharitmanas, Ayodhya Kanda 222. We can understand that Rama's exile in the wild jungles of India was actually his special mercy for all the disaffected persons outside the Vedic Dharma. Rama manifested the true all-embracing nature of his mercy without any importance given to race, creed, or social position. His divine grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes, according to the cult of devotion, generally known as the Vaishnava cult, there is no bar against anyone's advancing in the matter of God realization. A Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava even the Kirata, tribals, and other outcasts of the Vedic civilization, etc. As above mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9.32, it is said by the Lord, that there is no bar to any social category or outcast to becoming a devotee of the Lord, and by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return home back to Godhead. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord who has thorough knowledge in the transcendental science of Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone from any part of the world who becomes well conversant in the science of Krishna becomes a pure devotee and a spiritual master for the general mass of people, and may reclaim them by purification of heart. Though a person is the most sinful man, he can at once be purified by systematic contact with a pure Vaishnava. A Vaishnava, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and creed, and promote him by regulative principles to the status of a pure Vaishnava who is transcendental to Brahminical culture. The system of caste or Varnashram Dharma is no longer regular even amongst the so-called followers of the system, nor is it now possible to reestablish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economic revolution. Without any reverence to the particular custom of a country, one can be accepted to the Vaishnava cult spiritually, and there is no hindrance in the transcendental process. So by the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cult of Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita can be preached all over the world, reclaiming all persons willing to accept the transcendental cult. Such cultural propaganda by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive, without any particular bias for the custom of the country. The Vaishnava never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of birthright, just as he never thinks of the deity of the Lord in a temple as an idol. This is a purport from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse. The Supreme Lord is all-powerful. When a devotee, regardless of caste, gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnava, his body and mind changes from mundane to transcendental, especially when one is trained in deity worship and regular chanting of the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna. It is said in the Padma Purana, one should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, nor should one consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man, nor should one consider a pure Vaishnava to belong to a particular caste, etc. Sabari was a tribal woman who ran away from home when she was still a young girl because her parents insisted on her marrying a meat eater. For the rest of her life, she lived alone in the forest without education or protection. But she fortunately became a disciple of Matanga Muni, a tribal saint and guru, who blessed her to wait patiently in his ashram for the arrival of Rama and Lakshmana. Matanga Muni and his male disciples left the ashram. Sabari patiently waited, following the order of her guru. When Rama and Lakshmana arrived, she served them by washing their feet and offered fresh fruits, roots, and water. Then she asked them permission to end her mortal life and join her guru in the heavenly planets. Obtaining permission, she built a funeral pyre, meaning a fire, and walked into the blazing fire as she looked directly at Lord Rama and recited his names. Her material body was consumed, and miraculously, a beautiful form of a young lady emerged with the rising smoke. She paid her homage to Rama and rose to the heavenly planets, purified by her transcendental love for her Guru and Rama. It is said in the Svatasvatara Upanishad 6.38, only to those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Although from such a low birth and without any material qualifications, Sabari attained the highest perfection of human life by accepting a bona fide guru who taught her how to serve and love Lord Rama. Jatayu was a vulture. Normally, vultures are considered vile creatures that eat dead carcasses. But Jatayu was a sincere devotee of Lord Rama and a friend of Dasarath. When Ravana kidnapped Sita, he flew through the air with Sita screaming for help. Jatayu heard her calls for help. Although he was very old and blind, he flew into the air with justifiable rage, confronted Ravana, and destroyed his flying chariot. Then he and Ravana fought together until Ravana realized that Jatayu was blind. Ravana used his advantage to mortally wound the vulture. Later, Jatayu patiently waited for Rama and Lakshmana to arrive. When they came, Rama embraced Jatayu because he recognized him as his father's old friend. Jatayu died looking directly at Lord Rama and attained the perfection of life. In the Bhagavad Gita 8.6, it is said, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Jatayu attained perfection by giving up his life, trying to save Sita Devi. He was blessed to die in the arms of Lord Rama for his selfless effort. Hanuman was a divinely born monkey whose real father was Lord Shiva. Vayu delivered the seed of Lord Shiva to Anjani, a female monkey who gave birth to Hanuman. He later became a loyal servant of Sugriva, a monkey king. When Hanuman met Rama, he developed an unflinching loyalty and love to serve him by helping to find Sita. Eventually, Hanuman was able to find Sita by miraculously jumping from India to Lanka while searching for Sita. Hanuman entered the hideous Rakshasa, man-eating demon Ravana, in a drunken slumber, and his many beautiful wives sleeping. Valmiki Muni describes Hanuman's thoughts. He became afraid of committing a sin for entering the bedroom of a married man and examining his sleeping wives because he was looking for Sita, right? Hanuman said, it is surely unrighteous to see another man's wife under the influence of sleep. Surely I shall be guilty of iniquity for observing Ravana and his many wives disheveled in sleep. But my mind has not been the least stirred by it. It is the mind that induces the senses, either to virtue or vice. I did not waver from my purpose of finding Sita for my Lord Rama. Thus I was not attracted by Ravana's wives. Not finding Sita, I immediately left the bedroom to continue my search without losing my purity of mind. Later, Hanuman found Sita in the Ashoka garden. On his return to Rama, Hanuman gave him the good news that he had found Sita. Rama said, listen, Hanuman, no god, man, or sage that has ever been born in the world has been such a benefactor to me as you. What service can I do in return? I have come to the conclusion that I cannot ever repay you. Rama's eyes filled with tears, and his whole body quivered with emotion. When Hanuman heard Rama's words of appreciation and love and gazed at his glorious face, he was overcome with ecstatic love for his Lord. He fell at his feet and cried out with devotion and love, save me and protect me always, my blessed Lord. Rama raised Hanuman and clasped him to his heart. Then he took his hand and seated him close by his side. He said, tell me, Hanuman, how were you able to go to Lanka and penetrate Ravana's palace? Hanuman replied with modesty, a monkey's expertise is jumping from one branch of a tree to another. It was due to your empowerment of me that I was able to leap across the ocean, burn the golden city of Ravana, and slay many of the demons. In no sense was the strength of my own. Nothing, O Lord, is unattainable to him who enjoys your favor. Be pleased, O Lord, to grant me unceasing devotion, which is the source of the highest bliss. Rama replied, so be it. Hanuman's words are profound. It is said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of fallen souls, whose mercy turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. This is the Mangala Sutram number 1. Lord Shiva instructs his wife Parvati. Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, never fear any condition of life. For them, heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.128. Lord Chaitanya instructs everyone with the following prayer. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Hanuman's words express these deep sentiments of a pure devotee whose only desire is to please the Supreme Lord without any thought of material gain or even liberation. After Ravana instructed his brother Vibhishan for daring to advise him to give back Sita and beg forgiveness from Lord Rama, Vibhishan left his brother and went to prostrate himself before Lord Rama. He said, Lord, I am Vibhishan, Ravana's brother, born of a demon race with a body full of ignorance and naturally addicted to sin. I have heard of your glory and have come to you to save me, O Rama. The reveler of distress and the delighter of those who take refuge in you. O Rama, the reliever of distress and the delighter of those who take refuge in you. Hearing these sincere words, Rama embraced Vibhishan and spoke to him endearingly, saying the following, even if my enemy comes to me, if he forsakes all false pride, material attachment and lust and hypocrisy, then I at once accept him. Those persons who worship my personal form, giving up all their activities to me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Vibhishan then begged the Lord to grant him pure devotion so that he remain Rama's devotee forever. Rama said, so be it. In conclusion, Rama's exile from Ayodhya for 14 years was a wonderful benediction to the many souls who were neglected by the Vedic society due to being low-born, demonic, lacking education, or simply misfortunate. The saving grace for all living entities is to be engaged in the service of the Lord in the spirit of devotion. The symptom of a pure servant of the Lord is that he does not want even liberation. His only desire is to remain Krishna's devotee and servant, birth after birth. Shri Ramachandra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Okay. So now we return to Bhagavad Gita. We stopped on chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 31? 30. Okay. Okay, so it says, one who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Now, yeah, we discussed this yesterday, but there's some other things I can say about it. I did refer to other verses, but there's one verse I did not talk about that's related to this in the third chapter. Let's see which one it is. Third chapter, Bhagavad Gita. One second. Well, it says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha hankara vimudatma kartami timanyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Okay, so what is this verse? This is verse 30. It says, one who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. So you see, these two verses are connected to each other, very importantly. And in the purport to 327, it says, two persons, one in Krishna consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Krishna. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his ignorance. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is the creation of material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of the Lord. In Krishna consciousness, the ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Rishikesha, or the master of the senses, of the material body. For due to his long misuse of the senses and sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. Very profound verse. And then in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's even more detailed information related to this. Let's see where that is. Second. Okay, I might not find it right now, so I'll have to come back to this. Okay, I'll come back to it. Let me see if I have it somewhere else. 514. Okay, I'm going to have to come back to this. Anyway, you get the idea. So, in the purport to text 30 in chapter 13, it says, this body is made by material nature under the direction of the Super Soul, and whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is, well, okay, now what does this mean exactly? Well, we've talked about this before. You're obliged to eat, and then you're obliged to go to the bathroom. You're obliged to sleep, and then you're obliged to wake up and do some work to maintain yourself, and then you're obliged to go to sleep again. You can't stop these things, right? And therefore, you're not actually doing them. You're being forced to do them. You're forced also to be agitated for sense gratification and engage in sense gratification, and afterwards you get entangled in the laws of material nature. You can't stop this unless you take up Krishna consciousness. By taking up Krishna consciousness, without being Krishna conscious, you're being forced to do things. By taking up Krishna consciousness, you can stop being forced to do things because of higher knowledge and a higher conviction that you're not this body. Therefore, you're not going to be listening or being forced by the body to do things. Or those things that you cannot stop by doing, you choose how to do it in Krishna consciousness rather than how to do it in sense gratification. So in two ways, you become self-controlled by learning about Krishna consciousness and practicing it under the advisement of bona fide gurus. You, one, instead of, when you eat, you choose only to eat prasadam. When you sleep not thinking of sense gratification or dreaming about it. You sleep either not thinking at all or meditating on Krishna. When you wake up, you work honestly. You bathe regularly, at least twice a day. You put on clean clothes. You see, all these decisions are to be engaged in Krishna's service. So you're dovetailing everything into Krishna's service. And then, secondly, when material desires do attract you and you feel tempted by them, you decide not to do them. You see, so there's two ways. One is the dovetailing everything, and the other that when one is attracted due to some little weakness, you refuse to follow it. You don't become victimized by it. You reject it. See? So, in spiritual life, saying yes to Krishna should be our regular habit, and saying no to Maya should also be our regular habit. See? That way, you're no longer controlled by the modes of material nature. So whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of the bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one can act accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designed by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is actually a seer. So this whole 13th chapter is about how to see things correctly. So this one purport is very profound, very especially profound, because especially the last sentence, it says, the transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is an actual seer. So we're not forced anymore, although the force is there, but we don't succumb to it. We control it, and by remaining always faithful to serving Guru and Krishna. And therefore, one develops this vision of understanding how Maya acts and does not become a victim of Maya's tricks, because he's completely dedicated to serving Krishna, he or she. Okay, so I'm going to look one more time. Let me see if I can find it. I was sure that it was in the, let's see if I can find it real quick. No. Okay, it says here. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. So, this is basically saying you see how people are getting trapped by Maya and they're engaging in all kinds of nonsense activities. But we should not convince them to stop working or to stop their activities. But we should give an example by which they can see an alternative way of acting. So that example is when one practices Krishna consciousness seriously. That's why it says, so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. That's our preaching technique. We don't criticize or try to stop people from doing their nonsense. We show them an alternative way of doing things that's full of bliss and happiness and knowledge. So this is very advanced way of preaching that most devotees don't understand. But it's right here in the Bhagavad Gita. It's right here in the Bhagavad Gita. So when you go out and you're distributing free food, and you're not telling people, oh, you should do this, you should do that. You're just giving them free food, and you're smiling, and you might even say Hare Krishna to them. Eventually they start saying Hare Krishna back to you, because they can see that's the way you say hello or goodbye. And that you're always happy. You're not asking them for money. You have some books if they would like them, but you're not forcing them. They catch on to it. You know that? All right, say something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So Maharaj, in the food truck, like around a few years back when we started, people were not even aware about right etiquette. Like some people, they are when they are asking for food. But now I have seen how they are changing in last 2 to 3 years. They are very regular, and when they come to food truck, they greet with Hare Krishna. One day, Maharaj, I forgot to say Hare Krishna to that person.
Yeah, he said,
and
what's going on here?
He loudly said to me, Hare Krishna. And I woke up myself that yes, I forgot to greet you today. So that's how they have learned. Now, if I am forgetting, they are reminding me.
Yeah, because it's going back over and over and over again. They see, well, there's something about these people. Like they keep coming back, and they're sincere.
Sincere. Yes.
Once they see that, then that changes everything, their attitude toward it. Because in the beginning you say, well, what's the catch here? You know, what you want us to come because it's free, and then you're going to sell us something? You know, they're very suspicious. Why is it free? But actually, over the years, they say, wait a minute, these people are for real. They really mean it. It's really free. And they're not trying to sell us anything or take advantage of us. They're not trying to tell us do this or do that. You know, and then they will start asking questions. And at that point, you know, when they start asking you questions, you can explain more things about Krishna consciousness, but they'll be willing to listen because now they trust you. To gain that trust is not an easy thing. And see, if you go out and you only want to distribute books, that turns some people off. Because they see, as soon as you say you don't want the book, the devotee leaves them and goes to somebody else. Right? But this is different. You're going for years and seeing the same people and giving them every time free prasadam, not forcing them to do anything. and not trying to sell them anything, right? That changes the whole, let's say, relationship. And they become, eventually, they begin to trust you, and they're very curious. You know, how come you're like this? Maybe I would like to be like this. Maybe I want to also volunteer. Some of them want to volunteer, right? Because they see that this is a good thing to do. So this is a much more, okay, you have to be very patient. You know, you're not going to get results overnight. But if you are patient like that, then the reward is they trust you. Once they trust you, they'll listen to what you say. Now, they might accept, they might not accept, but by getting that prasadam on a regular basis, they become purified. So you're basing everything on the power of prasadam and pure, let's say, goodness. And that will eventually, let's say, prevail in the minds of the people. And that is what's going to help them define who you are. You don't have any hidden agenda. Whether they, in other words, whether you give the food out every time you come for free, you're not losing anything. You're happy that they're taking the prasadam, right? And when they see all these things, then it changes their relationship, and they begin to trust you. Okay. Yeah, I'm not finding this thing. So anyway, now we go on one more little verse. It's Saturday today, so we have some time. Verse number 31. When a sensible man ceases to see different, see, in every verse is saying how to see, right? Now we're on verse 31. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies, and he sees how beings are expanded everywhere, he attains to the Brahman conception. Okay, now this is a very interesting verse also. 264, one second, I'm seeing something here myself. 264, where is that? 264. Okay. So, when one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. Okay, now let's read that again. When one can see that the various bodies of living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. Now, this means people have different bodies, right? And that's because they have different desires. And those desires that eventually create the body of the living entity, those do not belong to the soul itself. Those are desires that have been inspired by Maya. And because of that, you get different bodies. Now, I'll give you an example. Look at the body of a young boy or girl. So, they look good, right? Now, if they start taking drugs, marijuana, fentanyl, this thing, that thing, engaging in illicit activities, eating junk food, by the time they're 24 years old, they look like they're 50. You see how the body changed? Due to their false desires. So it has nothing to do with the person himself. It has to do with those mixed up desires that they develop. Just like a man, if you give a young kid a cigarette, you know, and you say inhale it, they inhale it, they start coughing, and their tears come from their eyes, you know, their eyes start watering, and it's like they're choking, right? But if they keep trying, eventually they'll be able to inhale the smoke and blow it out, and eventually they get a cough. I remember my father, he was a smoker, right? He would always be coughing all the time. It was terrible, right? And he had difficulty breathing and everything. So eventually, it changes the body. All those false desires will change the body from a young, healthy young person to a person who's prematurely getting old, and their body becomes ugly. Right? So this is what's being said here. It says, when one can see that the various bodies of the living entities arise due to the different desires of the individual soul and do not actually belong to the soul itself, one actually sees. In the material conception of life, we find someone a demigod, someone a human being, a dog, a cat, etc. This is material vision, not actual vision. This material differentiation is due to a material conception of life. After the destruction of the material body, the spirit soul is one. The spirit soul, due to contact with material nature, gets different types of bodies. When one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, thus being freed from differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc. One becomes purified in his consciousness and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. You see, it's all about seeing. Now, we just heard about Sabari. Sabari was a tribal. And tribals usually have very dark skin. And they might be deformed a little bit also. And she was always poor. She lived alone in the jungle. And she happened to see that there was a guru and he had disciples in an ashram in the jungle. Now, she didn't even venture inside to meet the guru because she knew that she wouldn't be allowed. They wouldn't allow a woman into the ashram. So she started doing things like picking up thorns and stones in the different paths of the jungle, so that when the boys would walk around looking for fruits and roots, they wouldn't injure their feet. She would pick up fruits and roots and put them in different places so they could easily find them and take them back. And then, eventually, the boys figured out there's someone doing this. And they mentioned it to the guru, and he said, "Who is it?" And they said, "We think it's this woman we see every once in a while. She's a jungle woman. She's alone." He said, "Tell her to come here." So that's when she met Matanga Muni. And then he immediately accepted her as his disciple. And he said, "You stay here because in some future, Rama and Lakshmana are going to come. And you tell them, you give them, you wash their feet, give them something to eat, and then you can come and join me." So she did, and she had to wait a very long time. It ran into, I think, over hundreds of years. Eventually they came, and at that time, after giving them water and washing their feet and everything, she said, "Now can I go join my guru?" And they said, "Yes." So she built a fire and walked into the fire. It burned her whole body, and as the smoke was coming up, they saw the body of a beautiful young woman, you see. And she asked permission. When she walked in the fire, she was looking directly at Lord Rama, and she died seeing them. And now she had a rejuvenated body that rose up to the heavenly planets. So here we see how the consciousness is going to determine the body. Either we're going to have with pure consciousness, a pure spiritual body, or a contaminated consciousness with a decrepit material body. Right? Everything is going to depend on the consciousness and desires that we have. So, it says, when one can see this, he attains spiritual vision, and thus being freed from differentiations like man, animal, big, low, etc., one becomes purified in his consciousness. Say, purified in his consciousness, and able to develop Krishna consciousness in his spiritual identity. How he then sees things will be explained in the next verse. And then the next verse says, those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond modes of nature, the modes of nature. Despite contact with the material body or Arjuna, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. And the purport Prabhupada explains, a living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature, he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore, the activities performed due to his contact with the material bodies do not entangle him. This is what you have to learn and be able to articulate it to your kids. Otherwise, they're going to be stuck with the bodily conception of life and never be able to go back to Godhead, nor will you. This is the vision that one has to develop. This is the consciousness that one has to develop. To understand that we're not these bodies, that we're and when I say these bodies, we have many different bodies in life. You start by being a little fish, like a sperm, and then it becomes an embryo, and then it's pushed out as a little baby. These are all temporary bodies, and they're always changing. So we've changed our body hundreds, thousands of times in one lifetime. And therefore, we're not the body. We're the soul that's animating the body with consciousness and life. As soon as the soul leaves the body, that's it, the body's dead. It's dead meat. So we have to be able to see things like this. If we can't, then we stay in the cycle of birth and death. Now, almost everybody is bewildered by the bodily conception of life. 99.9% of the population of the world are people who are attached to the material body, which is an illusory thing, and therefore they never attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So the only way you can develop this knowledge is by hearing every day like we're doing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and hearing the purports of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas. Eventually it'll sink in. Eventually. It's not going to happen overnight because we have spent many, many lifetimes falsely attached to different types of bodies that we've had. And it's not going to be easy to break this attachment to the body and break this false vision of seeing other people in terms of their material body rather than seeing the soul that's enveloped by this material body. Okay, so a living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body, but actually a living entity is eternal. He is not born. And in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus he cannot be destroyed. By nature he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore, the activities performed due to his contact with material bodies do not entangle him. Okay, then the next verse says, the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. So this sounds like double talk, but it's not. It's showing how a person who has superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness is no longer duped or prisoner of the body. He uses the body only in the service of Krishna and does not engage in any sense gratification. Therefore, his body now becomes purified by the spiritual activities, and then his spiritual body begins to take over. When I say take over, it's no longer enveloped and dormant. Now it's starting to function as it should. And you develop the spiritual vision, even though you still have this envelope of a material body. And it says, the air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else there is. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in various and varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to its subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. So the scientists and all the empiricists, they can't understand this at all. No hope. No matter how many PhDs they have. Because they're in illusion. They're in the bodily illusion still. But a devotee who learns how to free himself from the illusory bodily conception of life will begin to understand these sublime points that are being made in this 13th chapter. The air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still, it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to its subtle nature. So what is that subtle nature? That's your soul, right? So when you engage in soul activities to please Guru and Krishna, you become free of the bodily conception of life because you're now only using the body to serve Krishna. At that point, you begin to see things correctly and are no longer under the dictation of the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then the next verse says, O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So, if we activate our soul, which is sitting dormant right now in this body, if we activate it by activities of Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam on a regular basis every day, engaging in devotional service, engaging in deity worship, going on Sankirtan, preaching, distributing books, chanting and dancing, then your soul is becoming active and it purifies your vision. Now you no longer see black, white, Chinese, Mongolian, African, American, blah, blah, blah. Now you see everybody has an eternal soul like you do, and everyone has Paramatma in the heart just like you do. Those are the primary qualities, not the body and the measurement of the body or other things like the color of the sky. One day the color of the sky is gray, like today. Next day the color of the sky is blue. That's called, that is illusory in many ways, because the color of the sky is determined by the reflection of light on water. So when you have it, when you don't have a lot of clouds, the sky looks blue because it's reflecting what it sees from, reflecting the light of the sun off of the ocean or rivers. Right? And when it's a lot of clouds, everything looks like it's gray. Right? But this color of the sky, it's neither gray nor blue. Right? It just seems to be like that because of reflection or refraction. See? So, in the same way, as long as we're attached to the body, we don't really see correctly anything. Everything we see is skewed. But as soon as we pay attention to the soul and act in devotional service, we begin to purify our vision and we see correctly that the real person is this jiva, and the jiva is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is present in the heart as Paramatma, the closest person to us, and our individual soul is always subordinate to the Lord, and therefore should only be engaged in the service of the Lord. Then we're beginning to see correctly, and then everything changes at that point. We develop spiritual vision and spiritual activities. Okay, and the next verse says, O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does a living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So the purification of consciousness is the goal of education. And the education that your kids are getting right now is the contamination of consciousness. The day your kid comes home and said, Mommy, I had my sex changed today, you're gonna be shocked. And this has happened already in Indian families in Sammamish. You're going to be shocked because you can say, oh my God, why did this happen? Because you put that kid in the school with these demons. That's why it happened. You purposely abused your child by forcing them to associate with these nonsense people who are called teachers. But they're not teachers. They are frauds. They're not teaching knowledge. They're teaching ignorance. And the highest ignorance is your kid's sex was changed without you even knowing about it, because the teacher convinced your kid to change their sex. This is going on a massive scale now in the United States. And it's happening here also. See? So you can't blame anybody else but yourself if that happens, because you forced your kid to go to a school where there are only demons teaching lessons. And they're not lessons. It's all illusion, what they're teaching. See? Okay, so in the purport to this verse, it says, there are various theories regarding consciousness. Here, in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of the body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. This consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the supersoul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. So my consciousness, your consciousness is limited to this body. You don't know what's going on in my body. I don't know what's going on in your body. But Krishna is present in all bodies. He knows what's going on in all bodies, whether they're human beings or animals or plants or whatever. There's a major difference between the super soul and us. And then the final verse says, those who see with eyes of knowledge. Now every verse is saying those who see, how to see. You say, you see? Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. That means going back to Godhead. Okay. So it says in a purport, a faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God, and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed into its 24 elements. The body is the gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. The material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and the material elements can also see the situation of the Supreme Soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. Now you see why I spent so much time on this one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Because you'll be able to see things correctly if you understand this. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So Maharaj, the verse we read, I mean almost all of them are very powerful, but specifically I have a question about 1332 where, and I just want to understand a little bit more. The 1332, it talks about a soul, right? It says that in the purport that it is transcendental and eternal. So transcendental to material thing, right? Material
It means
body.
it's spiritual. It's not affected.
Yeah, it's not affected by material body,
Yes.
right? And then, and he's kind of aloof on material activities or.
That
So
means if someone invites you to go to a party where there's drink, they're going to drink or smoke marijuana, have illicit sex, and you say, no, I'm not going. They say, why? You're going to have fun. You say, I don't consider that fun. I consider that sinful. So they'll look at you and they'll say, oh, there's something wrong with you. Right?
Yeah.
But you say, no, there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. You're engaging in nonsense activities. And I'm not going to stoop down to that low level of consciousness. And you have to have a low level of consciousness to do things like that. Drinking liquor, engaging in nonsense activities. You have to have very low, your consciousness is lower than an animal.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we are exhibiting as a soul similar to,
We are what?
we are, I mean, as a soul, the soul is exhibiting similar to what? The super soul or Krishna, right? I mean, we say that,
What do you mean by exhibiting?
like, is part of this world, but it's not contaminated by world. So Krishna created this material world, but he is not part of it. He is aloof from that. Similarly, soul is a part of this body, but it's still aloof from this body. He's not contaminated. Even if he's not contaminated, he's eternal and aloof, still he got contaminated. Why he acquired this body?
Okay, that's explained. First of all, I found the verse I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, that's explained also in this 5th chapter. 1 second. You see, the way, I mean, your question is how does the soul get contaminated? Is that what your question is?
First of all,
If you say the soul
I
is
don't
eternal,
think it is contaminated because it's saying that it's pure. It cannot be contaminated. But since he acquired the body, and we say that because of desires and settle, but how he get contaminated or how he get the body? I mean, he gets the body because something happened to soul.
now, what gets contaminated is the consciousness. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. How does it get contaminated? It's when ideas come into the mind and one begins to focus on them. Like, for example, let's say when you were 14, you went on the internet and all of a sudden there's a pop-up of a naked woman. And you started looking at it. And you became attracted to it. And then you figured, oh no, if my mother sees me or if my father sees me, they're going to get upset, so you turn it off. But now it entered into your mind, you can't get it out of your mind. And because it out of your mind, in privacy, you go back and this is how you're seeing incorrectly things. Then it affects your mind. Then you can't get it out of your mind. And now you become trapped by Maya. Would you agree to this? Do you agree to this? Yeah. I'm not saying you did this, but I'm just...
No, yes, I agree with this.
You see, this is what happens. This is what happens. This is what happened to Ajamil. You see. And he couldn't get it out of his mind, and his mind, his consciousness became corrupted. And he gave up being a Brahmana, and the rest of his life he lived a sinful life. So everything depends on how you see. That's what this whole 13th chapter is about, how to see correctly. If you can't teach this to your kids, you have failed as a devotee. Not only you have to understand, you have to be able to teach it to your kids. Because they don't have the experience to deal with such visions. And they're being exposed to it every day, especially if you give them the internet and a cell phone and a computer. They're going to be exposed to it. They're going to see these things. There'll be pop-ups. They purposely do this. They, meaning the demons. That's why Bill Gates, he said years ago, he said, the cell phone is going to change society. He's right. Once you get that cell phone in the hand of a kid, they get trapped. Now they're saying the metaverse is going to change society. But they're having a little trouble changing society for the time being. And then chatbot is going to change society, right? By the way, you know, they just outlawed chatbot in a foreign country. Did you know that? It's in the news. They outlawed it. I forget which country it is. They don't want it.
Here also, I think they are putting some restrictions on now.
You see, all these things, all these new things are coming out. They're to corrupt the consciousness of people and to control you. What?
Italy has become the first Western country to block advanced.
See, there it is, Italy. They're smart. Yeah. Because, you're not going to think anymore. You're just going to go on chatbot and, say, chatbot, tell me this. Boom, 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 boom. Right? Right. You see.
Yeah, and making people handicapped.
Does Vyasadeva have chatbot? No. Does he have a computer? No, but he's the greatest philosopher and writer in the history of the world. He didn't have any of those things. He just had pure consciousness. Right? And he's still writing right now. The Goswamis, they wrote so much literature. Did they have computers? Typewriters? Nothing. And they didn't have paper. They were writing on plants, plant leaves. You see. We don't understand anything. We're getting like misled by all this modern technology. It's misleading people worse and worse. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. Until everyone is like controlled by machineries. Right? So what did that idiot Indian CEO say?
Yeah, Khosla.
Khosla, what did he say? He said, pretty soon 80% of IT jobs will be lost. This is exciting because that means as a CEO, he doesn't have to pay, Social Security anymore. You don't pay Social Security on robots, right? He doesn't have to pay, there's no pay leave, there's no pay vacation, right? There's no, he doesn't need a bathroom, he doesn't need a luncheon, a free lunch, nothing. It's all electronic now, right? He might have to employ a few dumbbells to become, let's say, monitors of the robots. So I'll have to hire a few more people for that. But that's it. He doesn't have to pay leave or anything like that. So that's why I said this is exciting. I can get rid of 80% of the employees in my company, which means he's going to make way more money. You see, these are people who have no mercy at all. No mercy at all. They're just greedy. It doesn't matter he's Indian. You shouldn't be proud that he's Indian. You should be sad that he's an Indian. To say such a thing. This is how crazy people are becoming. See? And there's no mercy. You read Ramayana, it brings tears to your eyes. The merciful nature of Lord Rama. Does this guy sound like he's merciful? What's his name again? Khosla. Does he sound like he's merciful? He's coming from Bharat, right? But he's worse than the people in this country. Worse. He says, it's exciting. How could you say such a thing? 80% of the workforce is going to be without a job, without jobs. How can that be exciting? For him, it's exciting because it means more money, more profit. This is how crazy people have become. And you don't realize it, and your kids don't realize it. Your kids are studying to get into IT. By the time they get ready to work, there are not going to be any jobs. Don't you realize that? This guy Khosla is saying it openly. He's saying it. Right? Are you advising your kids? Look, don't go into IT. You're not going to be able to get a job. They don't realize what's going on. Okay. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
I think you're reading some words, Mama.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was in the 5th chapter. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and he is aloof from them. There it is, right? So that's a what you would call similar to the verse that we read in the 13th chapter, and the other verse that I read, it says the same thing. And it says, one who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. There you are. You see how Bhagavad Gita is very, very consistent. There's no contradictions. Any other questions? Fifth chapter, verses 8 and 9. Fifth chapter, verses 8 and 9. You see, Bhagavad Gita is exciting. You learn something new every day. It's just exciting. Right? Of course, if you stay at home and don't listen to the class, you get bored. But if you come to class every day, it's exciting. Every day you're going to learn something new. Haribol. That's what gives people enthusiasm. Okay, no more questions. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. You know, it was in the news again 2 days ago. It said many young Americans are no longer believe in going to college. It's just a waste of money and time. Look it up.
Yes, sir.
Put the microphone lower so you can.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sarma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Bandhu Mui Savadana Mate
Mandamuri Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhavatariya Jai
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhavatariya Jai.
Krishna Prapti Hai Jaha Hai Te
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hote
गुरु चराने रति ऐसे उत्तमा गति जे प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहरा चरित वेद गाय जहरा चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदाम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदाम जनार बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया एबे जस गो शुक्रि भुवाना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निधि नामिने Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol
Jai Gaur Premanande ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajagat Shastri Tarasatam Shri Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Maya Puridam ki jai, Jagannath Puridam ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Son of the Buddha, all glories to the Son of the Buddhas, all glories to the Son of the Buddhas, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavana ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vinanta Swamini Tinam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Chayani Visesu Nilaskati Satana. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence.
By His grace, walking across the ocean of materials, I can obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from His lotus mouth. Attachment to His lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From Him ecstatic prema emanates. By Him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic sutras sing of His character. Spiritual master is the emotional person. Lord and master devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter in the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada.